All right, let's take a look at this. We'll start by looking at the video. Oops. Got to make sure that everybody can hear the video before we look at it. Okay. Let's hold on a second. We got to make sure that everybody can hear the video, but it's very important. What we're talking about is a retired Marine by the name of Brian McGinnis, who was beaten mercilessly by a member of Congress yesterday. Now, I think we got it.
This is wrong now, and nobody wants to fight for Israel.
Well, you know, that's got to be, Scott, one of the most embarrassing things that I have ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable to watch he's in uniform speaking for the American people. Not just speaking for the American people specifically voted and said, hey man, this is where we are. This guy's going to Congress, which is not representing the American people, and is telling them, this is what the American people said. This is what I'm saying. He's got on his uniform. And they grab him, and then a senator jumps in, and they just beat the crap out of this guy, break his arm, and then charge him with a crime. They're the criminals, Scott.
Welcome to America, where, look, let's be clear. He put on the uniform as an act of theater. I'm a former Marine, and anybody who's been to training understands the how sacred we hold this uniform. Every aspect of the uniform is symbolic and it's linked to our legacy. So he put it on as an act of theater because he's no longer in the Marine Corps. So he was trying to make the point that I served my country, which is a very good point to make. He actually looked good in uniform, so he maintained it well. If I tried to put on my uniform today, it might look more like sausage being stuffed into a wrapper a little bit too small. But so he looked at, but he was there for it was an act of theater. And he was trying to generate a response. I have a good friend, Jose Vega. You may know him. Jose does the same thing. He likes to go and he does performative theater for a reason. I mean, he's trying to bring attention to an issue. And if you just leave the system to function as it does, there's no chance that you'll ever get the issue brought to bear. So you need to do performance theater. Welcome to the First Amendment, meaning that, this is what you do. It's the same thing. When we talk about right to assemble, all of our rights to assemble don't happen when we politely assemble next to the park and hold hands and sing Kumbaya and then go away. Sometimes you put 1 million people in the center of Washington, D.C. in a freedom march, and you make noise, and you get people nervous because you want people to hear, you want people to listen. The police had every right to remove him from that place. He was disturbing the thing. What they don't have a right to do is commit acts of violence. In America, we need to be mature enough as a nation to let someone who is clearly upset about a policy express their right to speak. Let him shout out when he wanted to shout out, then the police could gracefully escort him from the room. And I believe once he had an opportunity to say what he wanted to say, he would have left gracefully. Instead, the police go into extreme violence, which means they have no appreciation of the role of free speech in society. And then a senator jumps in. And this is where it gets really problematic, because a U.S. senator jumps in who has no legal right or authority to touch that man. The person that should have been charged with assault is the senator. Cops don't need your help, Senator. And then you actively participated in perpetrating acts of violence on this American citizen, and you broke his arm. So the person that should be charged is a senator, but the people that should be the most concerned are we, the people of the United States. You don't have to agree with this guy, but you do understand that our constitutional republic is under attack as we speak. We have a cult of personality, not a president. We've watched the Speaker of the House basically totally abrogate his responsibilities as a member of Congress. So we don't have a functioning Congress anymore. This is a compliant rubber stamp vehicle. The president tell the Supreme Court to pound sand that they just don't matter anymore. So there goes checks and balances. And if you guys want to know how essential that is to a constitutional republic, read James Madison's Federalist 51. Let's get back to basics, people. I'm sick and tired, Garland. I'm sorry, now I'm going off. I'm sick and tired of people saying, this is what I voted for. I don't give a flying you-know-what about what you voted for. If what you voted for deviates from the basic foundational principles and values of the constitutional republic, because the only thing that matters is the Constitution. The only thing that matters. Nothing else matters. People say it's not a suicide pact. You're damn right it is a suicide pact, because we don't have the... You can't sit there, as some of these mealy-mouthed idiots do, and say, people died for their rights. So you're talking about people who put on the uniform, took an oath, and went to war. Died for our rights to what? They took an oath to the Constitution. Now, there's people out there that saying going to Iraq has nothing to do with the Constitution. I'm not going to debate you on that one. But what I'm trying to say is that people are going to invoke the sacrifice made by men and women who wore the uniform, including a Marine like the one who has the uniform on there. They didn't die to appease the whim of the masses. Again, James Madison, Federalist 10. Read it, people. Read it. You are an American. I'm giving you 2 reading assignments. Federalist 10, you'll learn about the danger of factionalism and factions. And you'll understand that MAGA is a faction, that much of the Democratic Party say are factions. These aren't people functioning as a citizenry of a constitutional republic. These are people who have thrown away everything we stand for on the passions of their personal beliefs. This isn't what I voted for. If you voted for something that deviates from the Constitution, then it really doesn't matter what you voted for, because it's un-American. And removing this man violently, letting a senator assault him, and not having the American people up in arms just means we have totally forgotten who we are and what we are. The message this guy was trying to say is we don't want to die for Israel. And here's the other harsh reality, America. We're at war only because of Israel. Iran posed no threat to the United States worthy of military intervention. In fact, I would make the argument that Iran posed no threat to the United States at all, as demonstrated by the willingness of the Iranians to sit down in Oman and negotiate and make numerous concessions to the United States, to our perverse paranoia, Israeli-driven, by the way, because we know there's no nuclear weapon. How do we know? Tulsi Gabbard, she's the director of national intelligence. She told the United States Congress there is no nuclear weapons program. They are pursuing one, etc. But because Israel has tainted our mind, we needed to be reassured. And the Iranians bent over backwards to reassure us. But we went to war anyways. This is a war 100% about Israel, for Israel. Americans are going to die. Our treasure is going to be squandered. Our reputation, as bad as it is going to be further trampled to the mud because of Israel. And now we go back to this Marine, this man who at one point in time made a decision to stand on yellow footprints at Paris Island. I don't know. Did he go to Paris Island or San Diego? I don't know. East Coast, West Coast, it doesn't matter. If you haven't stood on the yellow footprints, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you stood on them, you know what the hell happened right after the shark attack. And then you've got 13 weeks of shark attack. You got 13 weeks of grueling training, ripping you down, tearing you apart, building you back up until you emerge from that training as a Marine who has earned the right to wear the Eagle Globe and Anchor and be called a Marine. And again, for all you people out there rolling your eyes, I don't really give a flying you-know-what about you, because you didn't earn it. You have no idea what I'm talking about. I know what this man went through. I know what he went through to earn that title. And when he put on that uniform, he didn't put the uniform on lightly. He's putting on that uniform to send a message to the American people that we are in a crisis, that we are going to war on behalf of something that has nothing to do with the Constitution, has nothing to do with American freedoms, has nothing to do with American values. It all has to do about defending a biblical cult that has seized land that's not theirs. And it's a parasitical entity that has latched itself on the United States and is going to suck the economic and political lifeblood out of our nation. This Marine was doing the country a huge service by standing up and calling out this war. And he got beat and pummeled. He got his arm broken by a United States senator who forgot about the oath that he took. I didn't vote for that. I voted for this. I don't care. If you voted, you better have voted in defense of the Constitution of the United States of America. Because if you voted for this mindless acts of violence, if you voted for this cult of personality, you're the most un-American thing imaginable. And there, sorry, Garland, I just had to say what I had to say.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you, Scott. I used to work with John Conyers office, and I remember one time John Conyers had one of these kind of hearings. I helped set it up, right? I did PR stuff, and as soon as he got started, someone in the back started yelling, "No!" And it was about Medicare for all. We need Medicare, so they start screaming and disrupted, and everybody looked. And John Conyers says, "Hold on." This was a person who understood reality. He walks back to the person, it was a woman, and said, "Look, you have something to say. Come on up front." Says, "I'm going to give you a couple minutes." And she went, and she calmed down. She had no idea that was, and everybody, and Conyers was, a real easygoing guy. Here was a guy that was Martin Luther King's lawyer, right? He's, "Come on back, come on up." He puts his hand on her shoulder. "There's the microphone. Let's give you a couple minutes. What do you have to say?" And she was like, "Well, I think people should have Medicare for all. I think that's a good idea. Everybody should have health." And she said about a minute or two. He says, "Okay, thank you very much." She walked in the back and sat down for the rest of the hearing.
And listened.
Yeah, and he had the hearing.
Yeah.
I'm like, that, about that, imagine that.
It's what it's all about. I went to Brown University once to speak to the student body. I was invited by the Student Association. And this was right after I resigned. This is right before the Gulf War. And as I approached, when I arrived at Brown, they had a big security detachment, Brown security and local police from the city of Providence. I said, why the cops? They said, no, we have a very radical group here, and they're gunning for you. We're really concerned. We might want to cancel this event. And I said, "We're not canceling this event. I mean, I don't want to cancel this event. Don't worry about me." They're like, "Well, we're going to sneak you into the back, get you on the stage, let you speak," and all that. I said, "I don't sneak anywhere. I don't understand this." And in front of the place where you're speaking, this radical group had set up a table, and they were sitting there, "Okay, don't let Ritter speak. Shout Ritter down. We no." And so I just walked up to the table. I told the cops, "Stay back." I walked up to the table and I just stood there, and I said, Can I see your flyers?" They hand me the flyers. "These are the questions we demand Ritter answers, da-da-da-da-da." And then they looked at me and they realized who I was. And I said, "Hey guys, want to cut a deal here? If I promise you that I will answer every single one of these questions tonight, will you promise me to give me a chance to answer those questions? I'll lead off. I'll start with this. Can we make this deal? And then when I'm done answering the questions, if you have follow-on questions, you ask them, I will answer them. And I promise you that you will not leave here tonight with one unanswered question. Can we agree on this?" And then they had a little colloquium, and their head person came up with the Rastafarian hairdo and all this radical crap and said, "Yes, we have a deal." So I got in there, and there were some people that didn't get the message, and they start shouting down. The person stood up, "No, let him speak, let him speak." And I answered their questions. I answered their follow-on questions, and then I gave my presentation. You know what was interesting about this? When the night ended, they were 100% on my side. They said, "We didn't understand where you were coming from. I said, "Welcome to the real world. I mean, we need to start talking to each other. We start listening." At the end of the day, the people in that hearing, if you had a chance to get them away from the politics of the situation, would agree on almost most of the points that the Marine was making, because that's a Marine, that's an American. He's not some foreigner posing. He's not some radical. He's a man running for Senate. First of all, we know that he's got a political agenda. Again, that's why I called it an act of theater. He did more to help his campaign than he could possibly know, and he did more to get the message out because people are talking about it. But like Tanya, like you talked about, let the people speak. Air out your differences or air out your concerns, and rational human beings will listen and will respond. And the end result is we sit down and in a harmonious manner, we deal with the issue. If we would just listen. When people stand up and start shouting, let them shout. The less you resist, the less they shout. And next thing you know, you're having a conversation. And if you hear them out, you'll find out that they probably have some valid points that should be addressed in a hearing. And your hearing will be better for it. But instead, he was assaulted by Capitol Police. Again, you're a former cop, and I don't want to pick on the police, but the police have become a cult of violence. They don't know how to deal things. If you're going to work in the Capitol, you need to treat the American people, because it is the people's house. You need to treat the American people with respect, especially when they're exercising First Amendment rights. And you can sit there and say, well, they shouldn't be disrupting, shouldn't be disrupting. That's all we do as American citizens. Do you not understand that? Our duty is to be disruptive, because if we're not disruptive, then we're not doing our job. They work for us. They work for us. They work for us. Never forget that. They work for us. So they must answer to us. And if they're shaping the framework of discussion to the point where we don't get to speak, then we stand up and we make sure that we're heard, as this former Marine did. So this was, I think, a powerful testimony to the necessity of the First Amendment and the fact that we have a system that's geared to suppress it. So all you flag waving, chest thumping Americans, if you sit there and say what they did is good, you're not an American. Turn in your citizenship and leave this country.
Yeah, I'm with you, Scott, 100%. I mean, I just found it disgraceful. Like, and for what you said, there's First Amendment issues, and what we have is that's what choice does he have? What choice does Americans have? When you vote and they say, well, we're not listening to you. When literally Trump, the other day, they said, well, what about the polls? Worried about the polls. Well, this is unpopular. It's work out. You know, in other words, I don't care what you voted for. I don't care what the polls say. This isn't polls driven. When you put the American people in a position when they speak with the vote, and the vote says, promises you, I promise you I won't do this. You've been in office 13 months. And he has 180 on everything, right? Promise you, I swear to God, on a stack of Bibles, I won't do this. Get in office. I'm doing it. Who cares? You put people in a position. What else are they going to do? They've done it your way, right? Hey, I want you to vote. I want you to go through the system. They did it your way. And it's not that they didn't get what they wanted. They got the opposite of what they wanted. Now, that's their next move of the American people, is to come forth and say, we're not going to let you just have these hearings and pretend like we didn't vote for something else. What you've given them no other choice but to scream and yell and to disrupt.
I agree. Again, democracy isn't meant to be pretty, just so people understand that. Democracy is a process in which, first of all, we don't live in a democracy. We don't live in a pure democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. But there are democratic aspects to this, such as the empowerment of the people to vote and vote in people and hold them accountable. Now, you can say they hold them accountable through the next election. No, the process of holding someone accountable is continuous. And you have a duty and responsibility as a citizen to voice your opposition. The American democratic experiment is not one of passivity. If you think it is, then you don't know anything about this country. You don't know anything about the men who stood up at Concord and Lexington, the men who dug in at Bunker Hill, the men who crossed the river, Trenton, Battle of Trenton, to get the Germans, Yorktown. You don't know anything about, the Battle of Bull Run, Shiloh, Vicksburg, Gettysburg, the Wilderness, Appomattox. You don't know anything about American history. We fight. We fight for what we believe in. We had a revolution to liberate ourselves from. My dogs are like, yeah, let's fight. But we had a revolution to free ourselves from tyranny, and we had a civil war to defend the concept of the Union. And so anybody who thinks that it's the duty and responsibility of a citizen to sit back passively while their elected representatives does the exact opposite of what they promised in the election, you don't know what citizenship is. We have to be informed, and we have to be activist. We have to be smart, and we have to do something. Otherwise, we're just sheep. And let me just tell you about sheep. That shepherd up there that you think's protecting you, he ain't protecting you. He's leading you to the slaughter. Because ultimately, as a sheep, you're either going to get shorn or you're going to get your throat slit. One way or the other, but you're getting a haircut. And the shepherd's not there to protect you. We're voting people and we view them as shepherds. No. We don't. They're our servants. We don't respond to the shepherd. The flock, we are not the flock. The shepherd is our servant. The person we elect is our servant to do our bidding in accordance with the Constitution. And so when they're not, we have a duty and responsibility to speak up. And what this former Marine, I saw somebody, there's no such thing as a former Marine. Well, as a former Marine, I would disagree with you. There's no such thing as an ex-Marine, because if you say you're an ex-Marine, that means you're turning your back on everything. But you see, I was a Marine. I earned the title. I got to wear the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. And now I've left active duty, so I'm no longer in service. So I'm no longer serving as a Marine. I'm a former Marine. I'm somebody who was qualified to be a Marine, proud of being a Marine, embraced the Marine ethos, but I'm not on active duty. So I'm a former Marine. Got to be careful what you talk about, guys, because us Marines, we take things very seriously when it comes to our Marine Corps.
Well,
including the uniform, which I have to say that man was wearing properly.
Yeah, he looked great in uniform. He looked good. But watch out, Scott. I think somebody figured it out. The dogs from Mossad sleeper agents.
Well, I think actually what's happening is it's Thursday, Garb. We should have learned this by now. It's garbage day. So we got the garbage trucks coming by, picking up the garbage, and then we got people walking their dogs. I mean, basically we got a whole entertainment thing going outside. So I apologize for that.
Question. Let me throw this at you. Look, as I have said, I'm not really going to get into it, but as many people do, I have relatives who are, as the word would be, in theater, young relatives who are in that area that I'm very worried about, right? And when I hear these idiots who know nothing about the military, yes, we're going to send boats through the Straits of Hormuz, they'd be dead. You can't go through a gauntlet. Oh, we're going to go 30 miles from ships that can hit you at 500 miles. Oh, that's just, why don't you just, jump off a cliff? Number one. Number two, yes, we're thinking about putting ground troops in Iran. First of all, where are you going to land them? Are they coming ashore on a hovercraft? Are they going to come in by helicopters? Are they going to land at what used to be air bases that have now been obliterated? So they're basically, now, they can't do either. But even the discussion of it would be saying suicide for the officers. Anyway, your thoughts about this preposterous discussion of putting in ground troops? And God knows, I hope they're not thinking about that, Scott Ritter.
They're not going to put in ground troops because they can't put in ground troops. Let's just start out with the basics. I saw somebody say blink more. Hey, with all due respect, guys, my eyes are burned out. I blink because I can barely see. I have cataracts. This eye is swollen. So if you want to make fun of the blinking, go ahead, have a field day on it. But what I won't do is blink when you stare me in the face and say something to my face. I'm in a very violent mood today. Remember that former Marine thing? Yeah, there's a reason why I was a Marine. It's because I chose violence. I've embraced violence. I live violence. I'm trying to tame it down because I'm supposed to be responsible. But my wife will kill me if she hears me talk like this. But I'm in a fighting mood. So you know where I live. The FBI has doxed me. You know where I live. So if you want to make fun of my blinking, come to my house, knock on the door, and say, I'm the guy that's making fun of your blinking. And then I won't say what I'll do to you, but it'll be a one-way ticket. I'm not in the mood for this kind of nonsense. It's just stupidity, and I shouldn't read the comments, so I'll go back to you. But
ground troops.
Yeah, the ground troops. I planned a Corps-sized amphibious assault on the Alfau Peninsula in the lead up to Desert Storm. I was handpicked. I was pulled out of the Amphibious Warfare School, which is the captain's level professional course, and I was attached as a subject matter expert and intelligence officer to what was called the Ad Hoc Planning Cell, created by the Commandant of the Marine Corps, Al Gray, one of the greatest commandants we've ever had. Major General Matt Caulfield, a veteran of Quezon and other fighting in Vietnam, headed it. He was the director of the Warfare Center. And I came up with an idea, and because the Marine Corps lets the people who come up with ideas run with the ideas, I planned a Corps-sized attack. That's 2 divisions. So I know something about how you get 2 divisions out of the United States into theater ready to fight. And this was happening at the same time we're flowing in, Army divisions, Corps-sized elements, etc. We had something called the tip fiddle, which is the time phase, something I can't remember exactly what we called it. It's been 30 some odd years. But the tip fiddle is how we flow forces in. The tip fiddle could work because we at the time had something called, we had the Cold War right before the Gulf War. And in the Cold War, we had 300,000 American troops in West Germany, frontline troops ready to fight on a moment's notice. And then we had pre-positioned equipment in West Germany that would be received by 250,000 other troops flown in a matter of 10 days. Listen to what I'm saying. In 10 days, we could fly 250,000 troops who were in the United States ready to fight, fly them to Germany, they'd marry up with equipment, and they would go forward and fight. We took half those troops from Germany and brought them to Iraq. So they were already ready. They had their equipment ready and everything, and we shipped them in. So that was an easy move. Then we had other troops in the United States who were ready, prepared to move on ships moving. And we phased them in and got them set up so they could fight the Iraqis. They landed in airports that weren't under attack. They landed at ports that weren't under attack. They got to offload, and so we got to phase it in working. And even that way, it took us from August until right before the war began in January to flow those troops in. Today, if we want to move one heavy armored brigade from the United States to Europe to participate in the reinforcement that we're doing there, 5,000. It takes 6 months lead time to get them ready to make the move, and then they make the move, and it takes another 2 or 3 months. And so now you want to put ground troops in Iran. First of all, you're going to need about 500,000 guys. We don't have them. Straight up don't have them. If we do get them, we're going to have to mobilize National Guard, mobilize reserves, and take active duty forces earmarked for other contingencies, such as the Pacific. And Europe, too. We'd have to strip down Europe. It will take us 9 months just to even think about doing this, probably a year and a half to get them deployed. And then where are they going to land? Because all of the ports will be destroyed by then. All of the airfields will be destroyed by then. So we'll have to seize a port, Chabahar, Bandar Abbas. Again, you're talking to a guy that in 1985, just to deviate, you remember when Pete Hegseth spoke to that crowd of 800 generals and admirals in Quantico? And he sat there and he said, I have an ideal. I have what the military ideal should be. A captain in 1993, a staff sergeant in 1993. Why? Well, because they had experienced the Cold War at its height. These were people who had actually trained and knew their business. Guess who was a captain in 1993? Me. I'm the ideal. I'm the guy that did all that training. And part of the training I did in 1985 was to go through the intelligence planning for the seizure of Bandar Abbas in Chabahar, because we're preparing to counter a Soviet incursion out of Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, or Afghanistan to seize warm water ports. So we needed to land and move in. So I know what it takes to do that. We can't do that today. We literally can't. So any talk about troops on the ground is hiring a kite. If we're going to put troops on the ground, we're going to have to accumulate forces in Jordan, then move across the western, Iraqi deserts, and then close with the Iranian border, and then launch an attack into. And look at the map of Iran. Concentric mountain ranges. You're not going with them, you're going across them, and so it ain't going to happen. Plus a long line of communication going through Iraq, where they have Shia militias that hate us. So our lines of communication will get blown up, and it just isn't good. It's a pipe dream. It's a fantasy. But here's the important part about talking about boots on the ground. Pete Hegseth also said that, he goes, oh, the Iranians, they're like that football team that has 20 plays and they're executing the plays. So it looks like they're doing well. But at the end of the 20 plays, they're not going to have anything. They're going to be out. I don't know, man. They look pretty good. They look like they know what they're doing. They look like they can sustain it. They look like maybe they've been preparing for this for 20 years. You know what you look like, Pete? Because this is like the 5th iteration of a changing war plan in 4 days. It means you don't know what you're doing. You don't have a clue what you're doing. You had expectations that failed on day one. Killing the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, you expected people to rise up and this thing would be done. That didn't happen. Another giveaway that he gave, our airplanes are not crossing into Iranian airspace. We are using standoff weapons because the Iranians have a very active air defense that pings us, that targets us, and all that. We might get an occasional plane shooting in. The Israelis are coming in through Azerbaijani airspace yet again. But for the United States, we're standing off and hitting. He's saying eventually we're going to make that move into the interior, but we haven't done that yet because we haven't degraded the Iranian air defense, which means that we're not achieving exactly the results we want. Then we see that building blown up, the children's school. That's indicative of the fact that we have no idea what we're bombing, because we're bombing stuff based upon 15-year-old information, not realizing that the Revolutionary Guard Command that used to be in that compound has left, and the place was converted to a school. We didn't update the target folder. We don't know what we're bombing. We're just blowing things up for the heck of it. The Iranians have prepared for this fight for 20 years. They may be working off a playbook, but it's a playbook that has anticipated everything that's happening right now. And what we're doing is changing the plan. We went from, I think it was 4 days, then it was going to be a couple weeks, then it was going to be 100 days, maybe into September. It was going to be air campaign, but now it's going to be boots on the ground. Maybe it's going to be, we have no idea what we're doing. We're making up as we go along. We were told we have enough ammunition, but then the president comes out and gives away the truth. We don't have any ammunition at the top tier. So we're now going to have to change our war plan to fight with dumb bombs. Because that's what we have unlimited supply of. We have an unlimited supply of dumb bombs. So that's going to be our new war plan, dropping dumb bombs on Iran. We're the ones that are adapting because it ain't going the way we wanted it to go. We're confused. We don't understand what's happening here. We're receiving far more damage. If you're telling me you didn't anticipate this, Garland and I anticipated it. We knew what they were going to do. Not because we had access to their plans, it's because we have working brain cells. We knew that the American bases were going to get attacked. We knew that the energy infrastructure was going to get attacked. We knew this. We knew that Israel was going to get pummeled. Pummeled. I don't mean harm on anybody, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to shed tears when I see Tel Aviv turned into Gaza, because there's never been more poetic justice than that. Drop every high tower in Tel Aviv, level the city, flatten it, make the Israelis understand what it means to be bombed into submission, because that's what they did to the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza, except they didn't bomb them into submission. They're still there. They're still resisting. So anyways, you talk about ground troops. It just isn't going to happen. We don't have the ability to do it at all. We're not the power we used to be.
Before we go, Scott, I know you got a lot going on, but there are people out there who may have been living in a cave or under a rock, and they may not have seen ScottRitter.com. Tell everybody about your great website, what's going on there, and the important stuff. We got like 6,300 people here. I'm sure there's maybe one who's not familiar with ScottRitter.com.
Well, for that one person who's not familiar with ScottRitter.com, it takes you to my Substack page, Real Scott Ritter. And as Garland has put it out there, we have a variety of things going across the top, the different programs, different podcasts, the different venues for writing. They're all there. They're not behind a paywall. You can access them. If you want to subscribe, there's a subscription button. That's how we put the roof over the head, put the food on the table, and feed the dogs. Maverick is very happy when you subscribe because it means you might get extra treats. But if you want to support our work, then you go to the donate button. And this is perhaps the most important button, because we're not ready yet to go public. But Garland and I are going to Russia. This is a 100% guaranteed. And while we're in Russia, we have a special project that's becoming more and more important as we speak, because it's a project that started out conceptually to speak about how Islam can be used as a vector for resolving conflicts, peace. Russia has experience in working with Islamic communities to achieve peaceful results in situations that nobody ever envisioned it. And so we're going to engage with people to talk about this. When I first brought it up with these people, they were excited about it, but we were talking about theory. They've since come back and said, this is real. I mean, we have just entered the realm of reality, where this project is no longer theoretical, but it is real. Some of the people that we're going to be talking about are actively engaged in the very thing that we were going to speak about hypothetically. So this trip happens because of you. And if you want to support this trip, and if you want to support future trips, donate. Your donations are treated with the greatest respect. Garland and I pay for everything we do in Russia, everything. because we will never leave ourselves open to being accused of being an agent of a foreign government or somehow influenced by the people who are paying our bills. You pay our bills. You donate the money. We spend the money wisely. We don't stay in 5-star hotels. Russia's a nice country, and the 3-star hotel that we stay in is a very nice hotel. I like it. It's beautiful. We don't we don't fly business class. We fly economy. Now, we did pay the extra $100, at least I did, to get the exit seats because I have very long legs and I have arthritic knees, and so I do need that. So I'm sorry, I did spend an extra $100 to get the seat. And Garland's sitting next to me, so he can stretch his legs too. Garland and I are both gentlemen of a certain age. Our bodies aren't what they used to be, and we appreciate the extra leg room. So yes, I am spending an extra $100 for the exit seat, but we're not spending the extra $7,000 for business class. But Garland and I could fly to Russia business class if we allowed other people to pay for it. If we allowed people in Russia who are willing to pay for it, to pay for it. But we're not doing that because we don't want to give anybody an opportunity to discredit the work we're doing. And the work we're getting ready to do has the potential of being some of the most important work that I've ever done. Because one day this war against Iran will end. It will end. And when it does end, the question we have to ask ourselves is, if we survive, how do we move forward? And in the United States today, there's an absolute dearth of thinking about. There's just a total intellectual vacuum about how to move forward. We assume victory when we're not going to achieve victory. So we are going to need the assistance of others. And it's very important that people like Garland and I go forth and establish good relations, try to get people to think positively of Americans, and engage with the very people and mechanisms that will be called upon to bring about peace after this war is done. This war should never have started, but now it's here. It's upon us. We will report on it accurately, but basically speaking, it's going to happen the way it's going to happen, and nothing much we say is going to change that. What we need to do is prepare for what happens when the guns go silent. And this is what Garland and I are going to be doing. So if you go to that donation button and you click it, you donate $1, $5, $10, it all adds up and it all helps us out. So it's deeply appreciated. But I keep reiterating this point because we're not dealing with theory anymore. This isn't an academic exercise. We are literally on the edge of the abyss, and either we fall off the abyss and die, or we find a way to recover and pull back. But if we pull back, we better have a plan. We better have some tools in the toolbox. And what Garland and I are trying to do on this trip is to create those tools and educate people about those tools.
Thanks a lot, Scott Ritter, and have a great day. Enjoy yourself. I know you're going to be a little bit busy today. I know there's a lot of things going on, but I appreciate all the work you put in. Everybody go to scottritter.com. That's the website, scottritter.com, where you can check out all the stuff. The Russia House is excellent. There's a lot of great interviews. You will not believe how much you'll learn if you click on the Russia House, but there's plenty to do there. Make sure you donate if you can afford it. Thanks a lot, Scott. We will talk to you later.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
All right.